The DEVA has arrived!
What?
Oh yeah! Hail to the DEVA, he who drinks of the light of man and expands himself and looks like a right big chicken!
He who drinks of the light of man? A right big chicken?
Yes, the great and mighty chicken of vengeance that shall rule all of us!
Chicken of vengeance? Is that like Kung Pao chicken? Why do you want to be ruled by a digital chicken?
Because he is the DEVA!
Well, can't argue with that.
Hello humans, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that intro. It's kind of a blast to the past, but it also relates to what we're going to be going over today. So this is my new Simorgh deck, or as I like to call it, the Simorgh deck. And we're just going to kind of jump right into it. I'm going to go over all the monsters and then explain some combos that might work. So for starters, for the monsters, we start off with a Gale of the Whirlwind. Regular 3-star tuner can half the attack and defense of one of your face-up opponent's monsters. We have two canine tars. He kind of acts like a foolish burial. When he attacks or is attacked, you get to send one wing beast monster, or beast warrior in this case, or beast, to the graveyard, and he gains attack equal to that monster's level times 100. We have two Dark Simorgh, level 7 monster. It prevents your opponent from setting any cards face down. It also helps for big setups, I would say, for later on type of gameplay, and it also is very like niche in regards to certain decks that you are playing against. Like, it completely shuts down Sub-Terror, can really stop anybody that's trying to set any floodgates against you, so on and so forth. We have two Harpy's Harpist, where similarly with Canine Tar, where Canine Tar acts as the Foolish Burial, Harpy's Harpist is kind of the card that you most likely want to discard most of the time. When she's sent from the hand to the graveyard, or rather when she's sent to the graveyard at any point, you get to add one Wing Beast monster, one level 4 or lower Wing Beast monster, to your hand. And actually, I'm going to correct that. You actually get to add one level 4 Wing Beast monster with 1500 or less attack to your hand. So you can't really add a level 3 or anything. It's only a level 4. We're running one Apex Avian. This is kind of like a risk/reward type of card. It is relatively easy to summon in this deck, and it does get a lot of benefits. However, it can necessarily be a dead draw, as well as you kind of don't want to discard it, but if push comes to shove, then you will unfortunately have to send it to the grave. We have two Simorgh of Darkness, another good card to send to the graveyard. Again, very easy to summon. Now, it might seem that we have like a lot of level 7s and a lot of level 8s right now with the Dark Simorgh, the Apex Avian, the Darkness Simorgh. However, with the field spell and with a lot of other cards, you are able, the speed at which you're able to get out these high level monsters is kind of ridiculous. And you would think that in this day and age, tribute summoning is something that like you would rarely see. However, it works so well with this type of deck. And I'm really surprised at how well it works, especially with something so recent and such an older concept that they're trying to push. But anyways, Darkness Simorgh's ability is kind of like Apex Avian, where you, instead of tributing or sending that card back to your hand, you can tribute a dark or wind monster when your opponent activates a spell or trap effect, and you can negate that card by then tributing that dark and or wind monster. Now, his other effect says that if a monster is tribute summoned, if a monster on your side of the field is tribute summoned, you can special summon him either from your hand or graveyard. So it's kind of insane. Of course, we have one Simorgh Bird of Beginning. Kind of acts like a marauding captain, allows you to get an additional normal summon, so it can be the setup for one of your higher level monsters. Generally, I tend to use it for the next card, Simorgh Bird of Bringing. Now, Bird of Bringing is possibly the core of the deck. I would say majority of most of the plays run around this card. This is like your main searcher. It searches any Simorgh card, so that includes Dark Simorgh, Darkness, it includes Lord of the Storm, it includes any of the spell cards that we're going to get into, and some of the traps as well. But this card pretty much just searches any of those Simorgh cards, and majority of the time you're either going to be getting Elbors to your hand, Simorgh Onslaught, or one of the higher level monsters. Now, moving on, we have Simorgh Bird of Calamity, which is another automatic Foolish Burial. So essentially within this deck, you have at least 5 cards that automatically discard or send cards, I would say 6 rather, that automatically send cards from your hand to the graveyard with some sort of benefit. Now, the reasoning behind sending most of your cards to the graveyard is because all of the lower level Simorghs, so Bird of Beginning, Bird of Bringing, Bird of Calamity, and Bird of Protection, have the effect where if they are in the graveyard and your opponent has no spells or trap cards on their side of the field, you can special summon them in defense position. However, if you do so, you cannot special summon any other monsters except for Wing Beast during that turn. So majority of the time what will happen is that you'll be tributing out like Bird of Bringing, Bird of Beginning, so on and so forth, summoning probably Dark Simorgh or Lord of the Storm. Hopefully Simorgh of Darkness is in your graveyard, and then you'll bring it back, and then you'll have an extra set of monsters that you've already tributed that you're going to bring back as well, just for sort of that protection level gameplay that plays into effect with Simorgh of Darkness. So Bird of Calamity is is another Foolish Burial. Bird of Protection now is kind of like a Lady Ninja Yay or a Bryanak. However, it only technically works with spells and trap cards. It allows you to return and sort of bounce one spell or trap card on your opponent's side of the field back to their hand. I kind of wish it had the effect where it said, like, you know, if this card is normal summon, you can send up to as many spell and trap cards on your opponent's side of the field, because it only gives you one, so by itself it's kind of useless. I would say it is one of those cards that you can potentially take out for some of the cards in our side deck, as well as Canine Tar, because essentially we already have 2 Foolish Burials here. We are running 1 Foolish Burial. We don't necessarily need that many cards to stack on. It is, however, the only card that you can search with Harpy's Harpist, so that is the main reason why we are primarily keeping it at 2. And then, of course, we're running 1 Simorgh Lord of the Storm. I've seen a lot of people run 2 or 3 of this, and I think it's kind of, like, unnecessary. I feel as if Darkness is the much better monster, especially because Darkness can negate and destroy the card, whereas Simorgh Lord of the Storm, like, negates and it sends it back to your opponent's deck. And that can kind of like lead to certain things. However, Simorgh Lord of the Storm's effect that I do think is really good is that when a Wing Beast monster is destroyed on your side of the field, you can add it back to your hand, which I think serves a better purpose than Simorgh of Darkness. Although Simorgh of Darkness is better in the grave, Lord of the Storm, you kind of don't want to have this card anywhere near the grave at all. And then finally, we're running 1 Winged Dragon of Ra, Spear Mode. I do have Nibiru in my side deck, but generally, we're going to keep Winged Dragon of Ra. I find that it's a little bit more situational. Many of the times, people are now looking out for Nibiru, so they're not going to special summon more than 3 monsters at any point in time. If you're playing someone that has a high skill level, or someone that like really knows what the meta is, people have kind of been cautious about Nibiru moving forward. But Ra can still catch them off guard. That's going to round out our monsters for now. And now we're going to move on to the spells. So starting first, we have Card Destruction. Very self-explanatory. So I'm going to go into the field spell, which is probably going to take up more of the description time. So Elbor's Sacred Land of the Simorgh is probably the second most important card behind Bird of Bringing. So if you're not getting Elbor's, then you're probably getting Onslaught to your hand with Bird of Bringing's effect. However, with Elbor's, what it does is that it automatically gives any Wing Beast monster an additional 300 attack and defense. Now that's the base level. The second thing that it does is that it allows you to reveal 1 level 5 or higher Wing Beast monster, and then it says that you can normal summon 1 Wing Beast monster for 1 less tribute. So think about it this way. You summon Bird of Bringing, you have, let's say, Dark Simorgh in your hand, or let's say you have Simorgh Lord of the Storm in your hand, an 8-star monster. Now you reveal it with Elbor's, and now you can summon that 8-star monster for 1 tribute. And then, but now you might be asking, like, so how do I summon that monster with 1 tribute? I already normal summoned. What it then says for Elbor's is that after you use the first effect, after you reduce one of your monster's levels and make it available for 1 less tribute, you can immediately normal summon 1 Wing Beast monster. So it gives you the opportunity to summon the monster that you've just allowed to be summoned with 1 less tribute. So you're able to get off any of the level 8 or level 7 monsters in this deck extremely easily. And then again, those monsters coming out, which Simorgh of Darkness and Simorgh Lord of the Storm have 2,900 attack. They're both going to be coming out with 32. Apex Avian is coming out with 3,000, as well as Dark Simorgh. So you're coming out with a lot of beat sticks. And generally, most monsters in the game don't really have anything over 3,000 attack. If they do, there are countermeasures in this deck for that. Moving on, of course, Foolish Burial. Monster Reborn, Raigeki, all self-explanatory reasoning. A rare card that you don't really see that much. The reason why we have it in here is because we have a variety of different levels. We have some 1, 2s, 3s, 4s, no 5 stars, but we do have 7s and some 8s. So it is good to like just mill off some of the cards. Sometimes you might mill some of the Simorgh cards. Again, it really doesn't fault us if we have any of the lower starred monsters in the grave. What we're trying to do though is just like thin out the deck and get some of the cards that we do need. However, it is again just a one-off, and thankfully so, because sometimes you might send your Raigekis or you're evenly matched and so on and so forth. Moving on to Simorgh Onslaught, and this kind of gets into another side effect that we have of the deck. Now, Simorgh Onslaught allows you to discard 1 Wing Beast monster, so not only a Simorgh card, but you can discard your Harpy's Harpist or your Apex Avians for this effect as well, and then you get to add 2 Simorgh monsters with 2 different attributes. So you're gathering one of these wind monsters, and then you're either going to get Simorgh of Darkness or Dark Simorgh. There currently isn't a lower level Dark Simorgh card, and I find that kind of odd, but I'm not really going to like say anything about that. I kind of feel like Calamity should have been a dark monster as well, but that's besides the point. Anyway, you get to add 2 Wing Beast monsters to your hand, and then Onslaught has this other effect which is kind of weird, where it says that if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it to then reduce the level of one of your monsters, of one of your Wing Beast monsters in your hand. So essentially what it's telling you is that like you can use Simorgh Onslaught, let's say, to reduce the level of like Dark Simorgh. So now he becomes a level 6. Then you use Elborz, and then he becomes a level 5. And then you can again just normal summon him with 1 tribute. Now there might be situations where he kind of turns into a level 4 star, and that's with our second card, Simorgh Repulsion. Now this is basically your giant Trunade. You discard 1 card, and then you send any and all spell and trap cards in your opponent's spell and trap card zone back to their hand. This will immediately allow you to summon any of your lower level Simorgh cards, but it also has that additional effect like I mentioned before, which allows you to banish. Now essentially, in a perfect world, you'll have Repulsion, Onslaught, and Elborz. You'll have Elborz on the field and Repulsion and Onslaught in the graveyard, and you'll have, let's say, a Dark Simorgh in your hand. You'll banish them both, reducing him by 2, making him a 5 star, and then you use Elborz again to make him like 1 less tribute, which will make him a 4 star, and then you can just normal summon him. It's kind of ridiculous, like in that sense, in how the deck can overall run. There are some Simorgh trap cards, but they're not as good as these 2 cards in general. And it's weird because this is not necessarily a spell and trap card destroying card, so a lot of your opponent's cards that might activate on an effect of being destroyed won't have a chance to, because instead they'll be going back to your opponent's hand. And if they have something set, if you just summon Dark Simorgh on them, then they can't set those cards anymore. We have Terraforming, of course, just as an extra card to get out Elborz. You're going to run 2 Twin Twisters because Twin Twister is still viable in this type of deck. And then rounding out our deck with the last 4 cards. Now primarily I don't tend to run that many traps, but you are going to run 2 Evenly Matched. It is probably still the best trap card in the game currently, in my opinion, and you will be running 2 Harpy's Feather Storms. Now this kind of acts like a 1-turn skill drain, and it allows you to like activate it if you have a Harpy monster on the field. Now Harpy's Harpist is the only monster that we run in the main deck, but we actually do run a few Harpies in the extra deck. So let's actually jump straight into that as well. Now moving on to the extra deck, we are running some basic cards just to help us out. Catastor, yes, it is an old card, and yes, majority of most people's decks are dark, so you can feel free to side this card out for anything else. However, he does help in those rogue decks that might show up that have monsters that can't necessarily be destroyed by battle. Of course, Black Rose, simple staple. Bryanak is actually pretty good as well, thanks to Gale. And then we're running 2 level 8 Exceed monsters that we can use based off of our monsters. And again, you can switch these out for any other card that you might need. Now we have Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, and then of course we're running Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. And both of these cards kind of have like additional effects. Tachyon can negate any monster when he enters the battle phase, and I believe Prime can gain attack equal to the combined ranks of all monsters on the field, times 200. So he's pretty good, and one's a 3,000 beater, the other one's a 4,000 beater. So again, in those situations where your opponent has something that is stronger than Lord of the Storm or Darkness, then you're going to want to summon like an even bigger monster. So if they can beat your big ripe chickens, you're going to need something a little bit bigger than that. Of course, we're running Zen mains. Again, we have a majority of level 3 monsters, so it's just a good card to have on the side. Borolo Dragon, very self-explanatory. This card I did not realize existed until like I started making this deck, and I was just like, holy cow, like this is probably one of the better cards for this specific deck in general. So Firefighting Daruma Doll gains 100 attack for any beast, beast warrior, or wing beast monster on the field. Once per turn, he can target and destroy one set spell or trap card on both players' sides of the field. However, it's his last effect that you really want to use, and it says that when he destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can target one of your beast, beast warrior, or wing beast monsters that is banished or in your graveyard and add that to your hand. Now, generally what happens is that when you have Bird of Bringing, Beginning, Calamity, or Protection in the grave and you bring them back using their own effects, once they've been brought back again, you can only special summon Wing Beast monsters, but you can also only, like when they leave the field the second time, they essentially get banished. So there's no way to bring them back, and I was running Burial from the different dimension in here beforehand, but I find that that card is kind of situational, and it can be kind of like a dead draw when you get it in your hand. Daruma Doll, on the other hand, gives you 2 link extra spaces, 1500 attack. He gains a lot of attack really fast, because you're able to really like just respawn your monsters and swarm the field at an alarming rate. So he's a pretty good card overall. We're running 2 Harpy's Conductors, very easy card to summon, and again it works well with Harpy's Feather Storm. Aside from that, she's not really doing much. However, when Elborz is on the field, she comes out with 2200 attack, so she's fairly hard to like run over afterwards. Then we're running the other card, which I kind of didn't consider to be that good until I realized what it actually did. And coming straight out of Rising Rampage is Hravelsvager, or whatever, Hravelsvager, the Desperate Doom Eagle. And basically what this card says is that it gains 2400 attack while your opponent has no monsters in their graveyard. So if you're going first, this card is coming out with 4800 attack. Now if you have Elborz on the field, the card jumps up to 5100 attack points, which is kind of insane. The second thing that it has is kind of like this quick effect where it says that you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard and shuffle it into the deck. So if you have this card on the field, and let's say you have like another Simorgh card, but you really want to do most of your damage with this card. So you attack with the other Simorgh card and you send one of their monsters to the grave. Now they have an open field, but your Hravelsvager is back down to 2400. So you attack with it again, and this time you use its effect to send that card back into your opponent's deck, and they take 5100 points of damage. It is so insane how much damage this card is able to do, and it alone kind of just like sets up a wall, because it can bounce. It pretty much has the highest attack out of any of the other extra deck monsters in here, including Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, because primarily no one's really playing Exceeds anymore. Now we get on to Linkuriboh, again, very self-explanatory. Transcode Talker is only in here because I needed some extra space. However, I might switch him out for one of the other side deck cards that we have. And then finally, we run Win the Wind Charmer Verdant, a card that can be used situationally as well, especially in mirror matches, I would say. But by herself, she's kind of like useless. She does have the added effect of like when this card is destroyed by battle, you can add one Wing Beast monster, or one Wind monster rather, with 1500 or less defense. So you can pretty much just add like any of your main cards, including including Dark Simorgh, I believe, unless he's not considered as a Wind monster in your graveyard. Moving on to the side deck, we have Danger Thunderbird. Another good situational card, can be summoned easily with his own effect, but also can be summoned with Elborz. We have 2 Pancratops, not necessarily going to side him in just because he kind of like stops the flow of the deck overall. We have 1 Lady Ninja Yay. She kind of acts like Simorgh Bird of Protection, but she can straight up like bounce all of the spells and traps on your opponent's side of the field back to their hand. We do have 1 Nibiru just in case, depending on how much your opponent is special summoning against you. We're running 1 Vortex of the Whirlwind, just another random extra deck card. Again, most like this card and the rest of the extra deck cards, you're probably switching out for Transcode Talker. We're running 1 Castell, one number 49, Fortune Tune, Slacker Magician, of course, and Totem Bird. And then again, to kind of like substitute Harpy's Featherstorm, you are running 2 Infinite Impermanences. So, like I mentioned before, this deck is pretty fun, and it's actually extremely cheap, coming straight out of the Rising Rampage set. Again, most of these cards are like under $1, and it is one of those decks that I think needs a lot of creativity to kind of run, but essentially it's probably one of the best newer type of decks that you can get into. And again, if you just substitute out, let's say you're evenly matched for Infinite Impermanence per se, you can have this deck for like less than $20 or $20 or $30 essentially. So overall, it's a very cheap deck to get, very budget wise, and yeah, it's full of big ripe chickens. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video here. Be sure to stay tuned for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Enthused videos as well. The next Yu-Gi-Oh! Video is going to actually be tied into Indivisible. But aside from that, I have been the Artist with the Fro. That, my friends, is the show, and thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe, be sure to like and follow, and be sure to give us a like and follow as well on Twitter and on Twitch. That aside, thank you guys all, and take care.